Welcome to the Bible Gossip Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Fellman. I'm going to go book by book and chapter by chapter and verse by verse into the Bible. If you have never read the Bible before, now is a great time to join me. We are starting at Genesis, so let's dive in. As we were leaving chapter 12, Sarai and Abram are leaving Egypt. They're asked to leave because they were creating so many problems with the curses that were coming upon the Pharaoh. And as you may remember in chapter 12, they were given so many gifts. So as we're walking into chapter 13, I can't help but my first thought be, do they get to keep the presents? Do they get to be rich? Let's see. We're going to dive right in here. We are going into chapter 13, verse 1. So Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife and all he had, and Lot with him into Negeb. Verse 2 answers that question from chapter 12. Now, Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. So that makes it sound like the Pharaoh did let him keep all the gifts that they had received. Verse 3, and he journeyed on from Negeb as far as Bethel to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, where between Bethel and Ai, to the place where he had made an altar at the first. And there was Abram called upon the name of the Lord. And Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herbs and tents, so that the land could not support both of them dwelling together. For their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. At that time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were dwelling in the land. So it's getting overcrowded, which is amazing work for the Lord, right? They've grown their ranks. They've got a lot of people joining with their belief system. But it's overcrowded. So what happens when we're all together and we're all on top of each other? It starts to get a little iffy. But in true form, Abram, he handles it. He's so wise. Verse 8 says, then Abram said to Lot, let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. So I love that so much because we get in these arguments sometimes and we forget, we're all family here. We're all on the same team. We need to find a solution that works for everybody. So love that. It's giving very wise, very, very smart, very listen, this is little problems. We don't need to argue over this. We can figure this out. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself from me. If you take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if you take the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted his eyes and saw that the Jordan Valley was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt in the direction of Zoar. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So think about that. So Lot is looking ahead of him. He's seeing this beautiful pasture. It's green, it's lush. He's thinking great for farming, great for food. Beautiful. But what happens when we always choose the biggest, best things? Sometimes looks can be deceiving because his neighbor is Sodom. So that is going to have some sort of effect on his faith, because you can't have evil neighbors next to you and your faith be the strongest, best thing. Do you think maybe he's going to affect Sodom, or do you think Sodom is going to affect him? So we'll kind of see as the story leads us, but I definitely think that's going to play into it. But I also think that's so wise of Abram. Let him choose. It really doesn't matter where Abram lands, because he knows God's got him. So Lot, go ahead and choose what you want. You take your people. And Abram has kind of he's raised Lot. He's been his mentor, and so it's time for Lot to lead his own way. And Abram's feeling strong that Lot's got it. He knows what he's doing. He's feeling very encouraged, and Lot is ready to go on his own. So Lot chose for himself the valley of Jordan, and then Lot journeyed to the east. Thus they separated from each other. Abram settled into the land of Canaan, while Lot settled among the cities of the valley and moved his tents as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against the Lord. So I really do think that is going to play into his life a bit, because I just don't think you can live a happy life with such evilness going on next to you without addressing that. The Lord, verse 14, the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust, excuse me, of the earth, your offspring can also be counted. Can you count the dust? Can you count the grains of sand? So we're going to circle back to that. Let's finish. We've got two more verses here. Verse 17, arise, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I will give it to you. So Abram moved his tent and came and settled by the oaks of Mamre, which were at the Hebron, and there he built an altar for the Lord. So that is the end of chapter 13. But what I really loved, I'm so sorry, I'm fighting a little cold. What I'm loving is the dust reference, because Adam was made from dust. Dust particles are so great that they can't be counted. But also, like, dust, I'm trying to like find my correct words. So, when you're looking in a into the sun and you see these little dust particles and they sparkle and they shine, and it is so amazing that dust has now been brought up twice. Like, we were created from dust. Now he's saying, I'm going to give you this land, and you're going to have as many, your fellowship and your family is going to be so great that you can't even count how far you go. And the thing with the dust, I don't know why the dust dancing in the sun just really is a visualization for me, because we're called as people who follow God are and Jesus are called to be the light. And so that is in Matthew chapter 5 verse 14. You are the light of the world. And so it's fun to see, in my mind, see the dust dancing and swirling, but it's glittering, it's beautiful. And so, but that's us. We're the dust, we're the sparkles, and that's our light within us when God shines on us. So I think that's pretty cool that he called the dust again in this chapter. But again, I also understand where he's saying you're going to be so many. You're going to be so successful in what you're doing that it's you can't count it, because it's as much as the dust. So the other thing to touch on is that Abram builds an altar. After all of this, he's turning back. He's back to where he started, and he builds an altar. Okay, I want to talk about altars because I think they're mentioned so many times, and I think that they are such an important symbol. So they symbolize our surrender, and they symbolize worship. When you arrive at an altar, when you are building, it takes time to build an altar. We offer our obedience, our time, and we surrender our will. We give it to God. Um, an altar in the Bible is a moment of encounter. A lot of times they built an altar after God spoke to them, and it means like, God met me here. This is where I had my moment, and it's a memorial for future generations to see that as well. I think it's a symbol. When you come walking upon it, you're like, wow, something holy happened here. And it's proof that worship isn't passive. You put energy into it. You put time. Again, you surrender your will. It's in God's hands. Um, you had to prepare everything for an offering. You had to gather stones. Some of them had gold. So it was really a strong way to engage with God. And how special is that? And how amazing that people were putting such effort into meeting with God. So today's altar probably, or maybe, but maybe doesn't look exactly like what they were building in the Bible with stones and gold inlay. And but what you can do for a modern day altar is just setting some time aside to pray, like giving God your time, putting aside your will, what you need, and just like worship. letting go of something God is asking you to release. So that is you submitting, that is you obeying. We all have things in our life that God is asking us to let go of, and it's important that we obey. And um, spending that time with God, you'll know, you'll know what He's asking of you. Um, Another part of being doing an altar or taking this time to praise is marking spiritual milestones, places you've overcome and God has helped you overcome, creating space for God to speak. I think this is the biggest one. We're so busy in our lives. We're constantly, running kids here and there. We're making dinners, we're working. When is their time? And so taking that time, carving that time out to spend time with God is so meaningful. And God is going to show up for you and talk to you in so many ways. And I would say just remember His faithfulness and everything that He's provided for us in this life, and see those gifts that He's given us, and just spend some time giving Him some gratitude.